I'm sure we will dispel some of the myths that we've had related to the insurance sector over the course of next 45 minutes. And to make it innovative, everybody needs to contribute because insurance starts with I. When usually we do panel discussions on television, the 3 key words that the producer tells me in the ear are lights, camera, action. But as I start this panel discussion, the 3 key words are innovation, technology, and insurance. The subject of the panel discussion is creating an InsurTech ecosystem for innovation. Let me begin by asking Sam Evans. Sam Evans is the founder and general partner with Eos Ventures Partners based out of UK. It's an insurer-focused investor. Let me ask you, Sam, when we say InsurTech ecosystem, what comes within the ambit of it?
Yeah, thanks, Amit. Good afternoon, everybody. So just by way of context, Eos Ventures Partners is an independent specialist InsurTech investor. We were the first to launch in 2016, and yeah, we focus exclusively on investments in InsurTech. And for us, we try not to be too narrow in our definition. So it's really technology that can be used to enhance and enable and improve the insurance process. So within that, we have, I guess, traditional InsurTech, but we have a broad definition which encompasses health tech, which obviously has strong applications for life and health insurance, reg tech, legal tech, and other adjacent technologies. And interestingly, we find often that companies have come up with an innovative solution because insurance is quite complicated as a sector, haven't necessarily understood the application within insurance. So we can also pull in technologies and business models from adjacent subsectors and other markets.
Okay. So Shwetank, as someone who heads the Innovation Lumen Lab for MetLife, and as someone who's an entrepreneur and an investor, to what extent has India embraced innovation in insurance?
That's an excellent question. So I'll just add to Sam's point very quickly, briefly. Insurance is a $4.3 trillion industry globally. So there's a lot of money to be made in innovation and in insurance. So it's a huge field in InsurTech. And you know, India has a huge opportunity to sort of grab that. And you know, I think it's at an early stage of the Indian entrepreneurs understanding the opportunity at a global scale in insurance. So see, insurance as a regulated entity, so globally, entrepreneurs have found it hard to sort of crack the beast, so to speak. And that gives you a good lens of sort of thinking about it. It's the, you know, InsurTech can be divided into 2 worlds. The enablers, those are the guys who are trying to work with the current incumbents, and they're getting about 70% of all the global funding at the moment. And the disruptors, that are the guys who are trying to set up brand new insurance companies, completely digital end-to-end, and they're getting about 30% of the funding globally at the moment. India is seeing both. You know, there's a lot of multi-use technology now which people are beginning to understand can be used in an insurance application. So I'm seeing a lot of AI, ML companies from India wake up to the fact that this can be used in insurance. And what's most exciting though for me is there's a lot of full stack disruptive insurance companies being born in India. ACO is a recent example, which are trying to go digital completely and really, from my point of view, that's an exciting Indian market itself to, you know, change how you distribute insurance, how you price insurance, and how do you bring much more inclusion for India's population.
Okay. So Saurabh, Shwetank, of course, comes from the life insurance sector. You represent Bajaj Allianz General Insurance. Do you think general insurance over the last 2-3 years has seen many disruptive technologies?
Yes, I would say yes and no. Let me just put it, you know, see, in India, I have a slightly contrary view. You know, while I belong to this world, you know, I'm coming from an insurance carrier standpoint. See, there are a lot of exciting technologies, a lot of exciting InsurTechs, and I've seen this across the world as well. But somehow there is a gap. And the gap is, if you ask, including MetLife, including Bajaj Allianz, including any company which is probably represented here, if you ask their board and their senior executives, does InsurTech really impact your top line or bottom line? I would say 9 out of 10 times people would say, no. Either there is a understanding, these are all senior executives, have put in tremendous amount of years in the industry. So somewhere there's a gap. Now that gap, I guess, is we are taking an approach wherein, whether it's again GI and LI. GI by nature, to answer your question, tends to be more faster or more at the, within insurance, tends to be a little bit more closer to trying out newer technologies, because there are policies which are of shorter duration, the volumes are more, and etc., etc. But specifically, I want to go back to that point of there is a gap, and that gap is because the hypothesis that I have is because we keep talking about the new, interesting, and if I may use the word, sexy technologies that are out there. What is the business application of that, and how does it impact, whether it is the the distribution channels, whether it is the operational efficiency? I don't think that is matched very well.
But
and that is where,
yes.
Let me just and that is where I think the scaling up of an InsurTech, coming in, working with a carrier, and then scaling up that use case beyond a certain point becomes very, very important. And here's the reason: we tried out something called telematics for the first time in the Indian industry, late last year. Reasonably successful, I would say. But the problem is, unless we pass that whole enough volumes, and all of us are from the insurance industry, we know, the actuary will never come into a point wherein they will say, these are enough volumes for me to give certain benefits back to the customer. Unless that happens, the constant engagement is always a challenge, and therefore, this whole thing, there is some restriction. Yes. Matthew Carbone and all, friends from the industry have always talked about globally that this is where it hits a wall.
Yes.
That is where scaling is important. So going back to your question, you asked GI versus LI. I say the problem is the same, whether it is GI or LI. The bigger issue is to solve, which is where we need to.
Okay, to the question that Saurabh asked Dheeraj, to what extent InsurTech impacts the top line and the bottom line of the organization?
So, I'd like to echo some of the comments that my fellow panel members have made, specifically with regards to GI. So, contrasting to the example you gave on telematics, you take what's happening with the financial inclusion agenda, what's happening with the Pradhan Mantri Bima Yojana scheme, etc., where you have a governmental mandate to push penetration and to offer rates which are, I would say at the very price floor. What's happening as a result is that claims ratios are topping 100%, and that's generally a red line marker. So this is one example of, let's hit critical mass first and then look at profitability. How can it benefit? So just coming back to your question, how can it benefit the top line? So specifically within the Indian context, I would say that, look, insurers are getting 30%, 35% top line growth year on year, just doing what they're doing. So the big question becomes, what incentive do we have to implement InsurTech solutions? Why should we do it? The simple answer is sustainability, right? So how long can you sustain this 30% growth year on year, number one? And number two, as the market heats up, how do you differentiate? One of my panel members mentioned that you have digitally first insurers coming up. So you actually have two which have achieved the license. This is unique in the world. China has one or two, USA has one. But India is unique in that regard. And why is that? Because we're so underpenetrated, 3% penetration. So the market is wide open for the taking. The challenge is, I think everyone agrees, innovation is yes, we must do it. I think the question is how, and where is that value to be captured. As far as profitability goes, I think up till now, please correct me if you would disagree with this, but we're relying on investment profit rather than underwriting profit. To achieve that kind of underwriting profitability, I would say targeted pricing, I would say deep focus on the product, and that's only possible when you have technology-backed solutions. So look forward to discussing that.
I just want to add one point.
Yes.
So actually what they described is the classic early symptom of disruption. So disruption never shows itself up front in the top line. Blockbuster, Netflix, you see all of the disruptive cycles, and Clayton Christensen, of course, done a lot of work on this. The profit actually pool grows before the storm hits. The early signs of disruption are things like how many investments the venture capitalists are making, what is the loyalty of your least valuable customers. And I think if you look at those metrics, you will see that insurance is actually ripe and that the storm has already been unleashed. So this belief that certain boards do have, that InsurTech at the moment is negligible. That belief has played out in many industries before in different types, and you see who remains standing 10 years down the line. So it's a very interesting
So
point.
Sam, how popular has InsurTech become before we understand the Democrants model? Globally, InsurTech, has it become a buzzword? Is it being talked about?
Absolutely. I think it's the hottest sector within fintech and potentially within tech. So over the last 3 years, the volumes of investment have exploded. So I think Shwetank is right. We're at the crest of the wave. It's about to break on the industry.
Right. And of course, we've got a lot of technologies. We hear these words, whether it is A for artificial intelligence, B for blockchain technology, C for cloud computing, D for deep learning, data analytics, so on and so forth. Michele, help us understand what's the Democrats model, how you are leveraging the benefits of technology.
Yes, absolutely. So hello everyone. I need to be extremely careful about what I say, because not only we're after lunch, not only I have an excellent audience in front of me, I have a client on my left and an investor on my further left. So extremely careful. But it's very interesting to hear that financial inclusion, last mile is actually becoming a real issue like for insurance company, and this is at the core of what we do. So the mission for Democrats is actually to democratizing insurance by making it accessible and affordable for the low and middle income consumer via their mobile phone and empowered by the power of technology. And the way that we do it is that, so we make insurance accessible because everyone has at least one mobile phone, and through that phone they can purchase and pay for and use and claim for insurance products. And we make it affordable because by using our platform, insurance company can save a large chunk of their distribution and administration cost. So we don't only work like with insurance company. We go and find the consumer, the customer, the end customer, where he already transacts with. So we work with distribution partner, like we have heard from the previous panel discussion, a lot of the challenges with the current distribution partner of insurance in India. We try to look on these alternative channels, like where the low to middle income consumer already transacts with, and this can be a telco, this can be a remittance house, like we do it also with taxi hailing companies. Like we've been very successful across the Middle East and North Africa, and we see India is actually a natural next step for us.
Okay. So Sam, since EOS Venture Partners has invested in Democrats, please help us understand how does EOS build relationship between traditional insurance company on one hand and then the startup environment?
So our approach is somewhat different to a traditional venture capital business. What we're looking for is, so our investors, our limited partners, are actually from the insurance industry. So we have insurers, brokers, reinsurers investing into EOS, and essentially they use us as a bridge. We become their strategic partner, and we give them access to the global InsurTech ecosystem. So Democrats being a perfect example. So they make the investment, yes, because hopefully we'll return strong financial results, but actually of more relevance is the strategic benefit they can derive by getting access and the ability to work with, pilot, test, and refine ideas with our portfolio companies. And we augment that by having a very thesis-driven investment process. So we're looking to build platform solutions. So rather than niche points in the value chain, create a more holistic end-to-end solution which can have a bigger value impact on the industry.
Right. If you look at what MetLife has done, you've got Lumen Lab that were established in 2015, and over the last 2 years, what I understand is close to 250 startups approached Lumen Lab, out of which you've actually helping about 10. Can you give an example with the audience here? What kind of startups are ones that Lumen Lab is working with, and how they are really offering very distinctive, innovative solutions?
Sure, yeah. So we've been approached by many more. We've evaluated 250. I think we'll take a step back. There's a lot of innovation theater that goes on these days, which is, let's run a hackathon here, an accelerator there, an incubator there. And the question we asked ourselves was really, how do we make sure we add value in a measurable fashion? So we changed our entire process. What we did was we said we'll start with the problem, which is what a typical entrepreneur does, but it's important to make sure you start with a problem that is relevant to the business and has a budget backing it. So we went to our CEOs. MetLife is I'm sure you all know it's a global organization, and Lumen Lab looks after Asia. So we went to our Asia CEOs and said, think of the problems that you want solved, that you're ready to put at least $100,000 worth of budget behind solving that problem. And over time, we sort of helped them refine that process and come up with concrete problem statements, which then the CEOs back with at least 100K, if not more, from their own budgets to run and implement a external solution. So the beauty of this approach is that you end up seeing problem statements across the value chain of insurance. So, from sort of how do we improve the analytics of our call center, to how do we, increase our reach to customers in Vietnam, to how do we, use the data that we already have to improve our prediction cycles. These are just sort of three things that come to the top of my mind. So Democrants was one of the startups that we are working with now, is around, how do we increase sort of our distribution footprint without necessarily investing in branches and or agents. So we've seen sort of the entire gamut of the insurance value chain, and I'm very excited by the startups that we're working with, which will allow us to significantly change the cost basis of some of our processes.
Any example of a startup? What are they doing?
Democrats.
Democrats is there.
Democrats is there.
Okay, let me come to Saurabh. Saurabh, what are the key innovation themes that are emerging in the general insurance sector? As somebody who heads the digital initiatives at Bajaj Allianz, what is it that you've been able to accomplish last 2-3 years in terms of some specific products and the response that you've got?
I would say there are 4 or 5 areas where we're focused on. Again, I always take a contrarian view in the whole InsurTech world. Don't get me wrong in terms of the exciting part of tech, but again, I go back to the real implication, real application, of all this, because initial funding dries out, the initial euphoria dries out. What we have done is we've taken a step back. So the same telematics example, the area we have been focused on is the connected car, connected home, connected health ecosystem. These are 3 broad areas where we have constantly tried to innovate, taken the whole problem statement in its entirety, looked at whether it's the top line, whether it's the bottom line, whether it's the profitability, and by the way, from a Bajaj Allianz standpoint, we are the only one in India who makes any underwriting profit, So let me just, so we do something well, from a prudent underwriting standpoint. Okay. But see, the connected home, connected health, connected car ecosystem, we're trying to constantly refine that. Last month, we launched 3 different innovations which are again related to the areas which are our focus. One, we launched the first blockchain-based retail insurance, application where you don't even have to file the claim. It automatically, the travel for a travel policy, we automatically do that using a blockchain. Obviously, it's a limited example of, in a true sense. So that's another area where we're focused on. And we worked with a startup from iSpirit organization, similar to, I'm hearing what you do in India, but we work with, with iSpirit, which Nandan Nilekani and all are part of that whole ecosystem. So we worked with a startup called Cripsy on that. Similarly, what we are now doing is across the traditional insurance value chain. We are basically seeing that, to your point, from MetLife, we are basically seeing where is the value, which is maximum value that can be captured. And therefore, we are taking that out, understanding what's the gamut here, which technology, plays a role, and then going all around it. So I would say in a short, IoT, blockchain, the whole connected ecosystem is through IoT. And of course, constantly looking at some of those other point solutions for our, biggest problems, like, whether it is analytics or whether it is on the mobile. But these are on the traditional digitization, I would say, it's
okay. So a very important component of the entire supply chain is the broker element. Marsh India is one of the leading insurance broker. So Dheeraj Thaplial, what opportunities do you see when we talk about brokerage, whether it's in regard insurance or reinsurance?
Absolutely. So look, I mean, the analogy that comes to mind is you'll be familiar with the term middle class aspirations in India were centered around roti, kapra and makan, right? And you'd made it in life when you had all three. Technology has managed to disrupt all three of them. Financial services is the last bastion now. Banking, payments, it's happened. Why not insurance? We've said that there are a lot of barriers to entry. There's a disconnect. Several of the past panels have touched upon these points. There's been a disconnect between the technology guys and the insurance guys. They don't talk to each other. If they do, they don't like what each other has to say. So there hasn't been that kind of active collaboration that we need. That said, on the brokerage front, look, I think the place where brokers add the most value is when insurers who operate on a pan-India basis or on a countrywide basis, they're not as nimble as they need to be. They can try to have an agency model, a retail workforce, etc. There are pros and cons to that, but a broker can help an insurer facilitate distribution, number one. Number two, when it comes to product development, right? So again, I'm saying this with the greatest of respect, but there tends to be a degree of commoditization that comes into off-the-shelf insurance products. Where do brokers come into this? They can say, we have a niche market segment here. Let's take a particular risk class, which may not be viable for an insurer to come up with a whole new file and use product for. Can we do something? Can we arrange a facility? Can we arrange a reinsurance-backed facility? So that's one area, product development. Number two, I touched upon distribution. Number three, so I just want to take a step back again and talk about why InsurTech, why now? There's an infrastructure, public infrastructure that has sprung up in the last 2-3 years, without which we could maybe seriously not contemplate InsurTech development in India. Number one, you look at the mobile phone connectivity, the network connectivity. Number two, you take Aadhaar and eKYC. There have been a lot of criticisms around it, but I think net it offers a level of infrastructure, public infrastructure, that's key. It's free, it's public infrastructure around which private players, banks, insurance companies can build a private architecture. Now, how they do that, that's the competitive edge. But brokers can, again, basically bottom line, brokers can help make a large organization more nimble. And yeah, that's where I see them working.
And Amit, I would add,
yes.
I think the collaboration, I'll agree with, the collaboration that has been there traditionally with whether it's the insurance carriers or the different parts in the ecosystem, right, the brokers, I think if that comes together with the factors that he's talking about, there's huge scope. And then the value chain really gets disrupted. So I guess, more collaboration than just a business partnership, I think that is where there is an opportunity.
So Michele, let's understand some of the leading practices from the MENA region where Democrats has been able to successfully implement the model in about 14 countries. MENA is the Middle East and North African region. When you collaborated with the insurance company on one hand and say the telecom companies on the other, or affinity groups like Uber or Kareem, was there resistance? Did they embrace technology? How did they overcome the archaic legacy systems?
Yeah. Look, I think that first of all, if we want to be serious about innovation in insurance, we need to forget a little bit the traditional insurance world. I mean, the insurance it's an industry that has been going on, since hundreds of years. There hasn't been a lot of innovation happening. So, we have to look at the problems and the customer problems. Of course, we need to be able to solve a problem for the insurance companies as well, but everything starts with the customers. And like when you talk to telcos, when you talk to taxi hailing companies, they all have the same issues with their mass segment. So how to make your driver achieve a higher performance, how to make your drivers choose more Uber than Ola, how to make your prepaid, the mass market, the telco segments spend more with you, how to acquire new customers. And to do that, you need to insurance has to be packaged and marketed across these objectives. Otherwise, no one will ever care about insurance. I mean, if you think about a telco that has hundreds of millions of customers, it doesn't matter how high the insurance commission it will be. it will still be insignificant. So before even technology, of course, everything is enabled by our technology and our business model, but we need to make insurance relevant for the distribution partner. And then, of course, the technology portion comes. So we have a fully automated and digital policy administration platform, and then on the front end, the customer, again, he or she needs only the mobile phone to purchase the policy and pay for and use and claim. And this, again, if you think about the scale of these programs, a telco, hundreds of millions of customers, it cannot be done with the traditional technology platform. It's easier for an insurance company to just outsource this portion of the business to a technology-driven company like Democrats.
So Democrats' product is very simple, and would you say it's paperless, and all the group needs to do is just message, they get their policy, and if they need the claim, that gets settled to also via SMS?
So it's a bit more than SMS. It's all the mobile channels available via the mobile phone. It can be a basic feature phones. It can be a smartphone. So for the customers, yes, he only needs his mobile phone. There is no paper. There is no like documentation happening. There is no face-to-face interaction. And on the back end for the insurance company, again, no paper, no face-to-face interaction. It's everything happens automatically. So to reduce the cost and the effort per policy, because when you talk about policy that is a few rupees a month or maybe a week, you cannot just use your traditional.
Right. Sam, based upon your experience in UK, US, Hong Kong, what has been the leading practices, the key InsurTech innovation themes?
So I think maybe a couple of observations from an EOS perspective. Initially, a lot of the innovation business models were focused around distribution, personal lines, but over the last 12 months, we're really seeing people looking to extend right across the value chain, which I think is really, really interesting. And we've taken a view, we've modeled the industry, we've looked at future profit pools and how they develop over the next 3 to 5 years, and then looked at potential for innovation and mapped that against current activity to identify hotspots. To give you our perspective, the 4 areas of focus for EOS, the first is linking artificial intelligence and life and health insurance. That's a combination of InsurTech, health tech, genomics, and driving that switch from protection to prevention. The technology now, the information is available rather than underwriting being based on historic information, which is proxy to the risk. It can be made real time and specific to the individual, and that can be changed over time as the risk profile changes. But more importantly, you can then augment that person's lifestyle with the right monitoring devices and the right health tech solutions to identify and bring potential diseases, obviously catch them a lot earlier in the development cycle, which has a huge impact on mortality. So that's the first. The second is around claims. For any insurance business, claims is always going to be the largest expense. What's really interesting, there was a comment made this morning in one of the other panels about the importance of the customer. And what we've observed often is that the customer is not the most important thing in the claim process, and they should be, and it's the most important factor in terms of loyalty and retention. So we're looking at a number of solutions that basically convert a very traditional analog process into a digital one and put the customer right at the center of that business model. And we're working closely with a company called Right in Dem on that. The third area is commercial lines and also SME, where, as I said, a lot of the focus has been on personal lines, but we see huge opportunity in that space. I think that would apply in many markets. And again, we've got about 10 investment theses within commercial lines, which we can maybe talk about at a separate time. And then the final area, actually, we're working closely with Convista, which is great to see here, who have developed a digital front office solution called One Digital Office, and we leverage that as a way of getting enhanced distribution for some of our portfolio companies, as well as a platform to launch new products very quickly into the marketplace with excellent UI. So those are the 4 key areas of focus for us.
So given these 4 key areas that Sam has outlined, and they've worked well in other parts of the globe, Saurabh, do you see in times to come huge opportunity in these themes for the Indian insurance market?
No, absolutely. I completely agree. In fact, I was nodding my head profusely when he said claims. Claims is one area, whether it is across the retail products, where a lot of innovation is needed. I think in the future, and it's happening now, insurance industry in India and traditionally, even worldwide, we have been a lot focused on the product side. Very good analytics on the actuarial side, on mortality expenses. We need to shift that more focus to an individual customer side, and which is happening, which is already happening. The one I was mentioning last month, we launched something for claims, right? For travel claims. We similarly launched something for motor claims. So in that process, I'm not trying to say that we launched something but in that process, the focus of when we started that innovation or mapping that whole value chain was actually what does the customer get. And I think this mindset is it's getting part of it is getting pushed into because of either the landscape that is changing across. Part of it is insurers themselves realizing that if we don't move from a product to a customer focus, we will not get anywhere. Similar to telematics, worldwide we have been insuring based on driver. In India, we still insure a motor car based on the make model. A very simple example in GI. Similarly, there are many things on the LI side as well, which is still more specific. So I guess claims. Absolutely, that's one area ripe for disruption across the board. The end user experience, the whole CX piece, that is, whether we do it through various, the whole omni-channel is a very abused and overused word, but I would say, again, putting the customer at the center, what that means. And finally, at the back end, there's a lot of, it's all AI, but more specific deep learning. I guess where you need to not just work with plain data coming from structured, unstructured resources, but sources, but more around how does this data interact with human objects, things, out there. So these two together coming in and doing that MLDL, that is another area which can again disrupt the entire value chain. There are many examples of that.
Absolutely. And given the key InsurTech innovation themes that Sam has outlined, I think it's also very heartening for us to share that we have Eos Venture Partners also foraying into the Indian market. So Sam, tell us more about EoSphere.
Thanks, Amit. So yes, our view, we're based currently in London, the US, but we recognize that innovation is being driven from all areas of the globe and particularly from India. So I'm very happy to announce that we'll be launching EoSphere in the second half of this year, which will be an innovation lab based here in India, which we'll use to drive open access to the Indian market for companies like Democrats and our other portfolio companies from the West, but also to support the InsurTech and the Innovation Center here in India, and potentially open up some of the external markets for Indian InsurTechs. Because it's really interesting that the number of companies we've seen here are very, very advanced, given the access to technology and capability that they have. And the third aspect will be more traditional, from an accelerator innovation program to access local talent to develop specific concepts that support our investment partners. We have a great team on the ground with Atish and Devinder. So looking very much forward to building that ecosystem and helping create the environment here in India.
Right. We'd like to introduce to you Atish Besantri, who's a member of EoSphere. We would like Devinder also to just wave hand. He's also a member of EoSphere. Atish, if you could please come, share for a minute or so, what is the vision of EoSphere? And after Atish speaks for a minute, we'll open the floor for asking questions for the remaining 6 minutes.
So is this mic on? No, thank you. So before I start, I just wanted to remind Michele, the guy who's going to make you come to India is on your right. So one of the things that I was watching the news and I used to see a lot of news around InsurTech Asia and other things. So it was my dream to have something similar here in India. So I reached out to Sam, and Sam really said, yes, we want to do that over here in India. So I also have a partner in US, and Amit Arora, who's not here at the moment. So he's also going to be playing a very active role. And the three objectives that we have is financial inclusion, because we don't want to get into the state-of-the-art technology which has a very limited impact, because India is a population where penetration is the major challenge. So financial inclusion is going to be a major theme. A second theme is going to be women entrepreneurs, because that is one area where we want women to come forward. So we are tied up with an organization called Sheroes. I'm sure a lot of you will know. So we are partnering with them to make sure that we get a good women entrepreneurs from there. The other thing is, we want this to be an industry movement. Currently what happens is, there's a lot of innovation. I think Saurabh talked about it and everybody talked about it. But it's all going in a silos. Each company is on its own. So we feel that, it's the time for the industry to come together. It's time for all of us to, you want to call it a body, or you want to call it an association, or whatever you want to call it. That's the most important aspect. So I am going to reach out to you, and I'm going to pester you quite a bit, to join us. So that's the way I see it. And one definition of InsurTech, I know a lot of people have clarified that, is that please don't take InsurTech as your platform or a software service provider. They are here to grab a piece of the business. I'll tell you very frankly, in Western world, the initial, when InsurTech started, and I think Sam is all going to agree with me, is that there was a huge war between the insurance company, the traditional insurance companies, and InsurTechs, because they took the whole insurance world by storm. They came out with huge strategies to attract customers, retain customers, and they started challenging the traditional insurance companies. And that's the time the insurance companies realized that, InsurTech is not your competition, InsurTech is not your software provider, InsurTech is your business partner. So that's the way we need to look at them, and not, in the morning also I was trying to ask questions to various panelists about what their thoughts are about the InsurTech. So that's the thing.
Excellent. Congratulations, Atish. I think let's have a few questions from the floor. Yes. Can we have the mic to the gentleman, please? Please identify yourself. Short, crisp question for a couple of lines. And to whom are you addressing the question?
I'm addressing to Saurabh. Actually, you made a statement that, this InsurTech, or whatever you call as a lot of digitization or automation, hasn't really impacted the top line. I think people have to agree this, because there is no data to prove whether it has actually affected top line or not. But yes, if it has not affected top line, then is it because we are bombarded with a lot of changes in a very short time, because being a very young market, are we actually trying to catch up the more mature markets abroad by just bombarding ourselves with a lot of takes? And if yes, even if this is yes, how do we deal with it? Because we can't go back and just cut back. So how do we deal with, how do we catch up, and what are the approaches we should have?
Yes, thank you. Short questions, short answers. Yes, Saurabh.
So first part, I don't think we are trying to catch up, and it's not a case of confusion. India in many ways has leapfrogged, technologies, we have, which were there in the West, the whole 3G, 4G, telco is an example. I think the hypothesis, if I would be, I would be lying if I knew the answer, okay? We don't know. Frankly, I would say, having run innovation also, what we are trying, what I think is missing is the right use case, which we have to come up with as insurers, or our collaborations with InsurTechs, which can create a massive impact, whether it's financial inclusion, whether it is in the retail sector. If that happens, that will be the the real disruption that we are talking about, and then things will go crazy. I think that's what is missing right now. It's all point solutions that we're trying to fit.
Okay. Yes. Next question, please. Next question. Yes. Yes. Ankit. Short question. Couple of lines.
We just have last 2 minutes.
Yes.
So yeah, we'll have to be fast.
What are the
possible business opportunities available under the InsurTech ecosystem in the insurance industry?
Okay, Shwetan, do you want to answer that? What are the possible opportunities for InsurTech in India?
The world is the oyster. I mean, it's a pretty open field of opportunity, whether you want to think about the consumer, the front end, the middle end, or the back end, right? So I think it's all open at the moment. Some of the interesting opportunities in India with the life insurance lens is around field force management. So insurance in India, especially life, is still going to be agent driven for a while. And I think that's a fairly unique opportunity which not a lot of attention is being paid for. So digital solutions for agents, I think, is a fascinating one, but otherwise there's a lot of opportunity.
Okay, anyone who's gotten any innovative solution, any disruptive idea, you can share that as well, last 60 seconds. Sometimes no question, just an idea. Think about it. The secret to innovation is anyone can have an idea, and the process begins by asking
I'm
questions.
waiting for it, right?
Yeah, excellent. Let me ask you the last final question, beginning with you, Michele, and we'll go till Dheeraj. One myth that you would like to dispel today, which is related to InsurTech. Atish said it's not just a software vendor. InsurTech are business partners. Any other myth that comes to your mind which we need to shatter? You said that let us forget about insurance, whatever we knew so far. That's the tagline of Lemonade as well. We heard the new catch lines, 90 seconds, pay the premium, 3 minutes, settle your claim. One myth that we need to dispel today.
I will dispel a myth on insurance itself, if I can. I think that the people who really need insurance are no one who is sitting in this room right now, and it's our duty to serve them with insurance products.
Okay, Shwetan?
I think the myth is more from the insurance industry. I think we feel we are very well protected by regulation, by the capital required to start an insurance company, et cetera, et cetera. I think we need to be aware that the dam is broken and and the change is coming.
Okay, Sam?
I'd add for the insurers, clearly, hopefully this has stimulated debate around your innovation strategy, but also, as importantly, is to think about your adoption strategy for the innovation that you're looking to build.
Okay. Yes, Saurabh, a myth that you would like to dispel today using this Fintelekt forum.
Already dispelled the myth. Adoption is the key. And unless we get adoption right, this will be another interesting thing that will work as a hobby, but not in reality.
Okay. Dheeraj?
So just to sum up what everyone's saying, I think InsurTech will affect the top line, will affect the bottom line. You just need an approach that targets the entire value chain rather than just one part of it. You need a use case that actually works. And I think we need to approach it with a different lens, that insurance is a product that can add value if executed right. I don't know why we have a trust deficit, but we do. And I think that can be dispelled with InsurTech.
Yes, someone said in the morning, insurance has been an eyeball to eyeball business, and that kind of breaks the trust. Can technology help foster that trust? Final words, Atish.
No, I would say that you have to disrupt the model. I think the industry has been surviving on the old model for a very long time. And when you infuse technology, you are only speeding up the business process. You're only trying to reduce the cost. But I think InsurTech is all about disrupting your model. It's all about how do you give power to your customer, or how you take it. Democrats is a classic example of how they are disrupting the whole distribution system and how they are taking. So that's the key. I think you have to really think out of the box and challenge yourself. Unless until you don't challenge yourself, I don't think so we're going to go anywhere. Thank you.
Right. Well, so challenge accepted. If you think of any innovative idea, reach out to EoSphere, Democrats, MetLife, Bajaj Allianz. But I think we've been able to at least disrupt that myth that the session after lunch is sleepy. I hope it was innovative and it gave you some good key takeaways. Thank you to all my panelists. Thank you to the audience. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Quite an interesting session. Thank you to our moderator and all our panelists. Thanks a lot. Atish sir, I would request you to stay back on stage while I invite Mr. Oliver Dixon, Vice President at Fintelekt Advisory Services Private Limited, to please come on stage and felicitate all the guests on stage, please. And the applause has to go on because it was an interesting, very interesting session.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I request everyone come together for a group picture, please. While the group picture is taken, one small announcement. We have Eos Venture Partners feedback forms, which is a part of your delegate kits. I request everybody to fill the feedback forms and submit it during the tea break, which is going to be the last break for the day, and stand a chance to win a power bank. So, do not miss out on this opportunity.